Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Sean, what's going on? How you doing today? Big day, good day.
Yeah, very exciting day here in Ottawa, at least. Scott, first day of the new guidelines, let's call them, here in Ontario, which has led to some increased police presence at the Quebec border, which is something we saw last spring, but first time on the Ontario side of it. But let's ignore all that.
Yeah.
The new age restrictions for the AstraZeneca's vaccine has been lowered, so we're closer. And I live in downtown Ottawa, and there are wait lists now for downtown Ottawa pharmacies, which is new. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Too bad neither of us are 40. And
no, but I can be on the downtown. I can actually be on a wait list now. Whereas before I couldn't get to a pharmacy within an hour for the ones that had the wait list. Now there's two within a 20-minute walk.
Hey, well, that's good news, Sean.
Yeah.
You know what else? Good news.
What's that?
Budget day.
Yeah, big day here in the nation's capital. Budget day. Certainly a lot of folks here paying attention. Scott, what's your big standout from the budget?
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I think, why not, right? Interest rates are really low. So, that's why houses are so expensive, right? I could borrow a lot of money. Why not?
Yeah, so it's always a big day. I always enjoy the shoe purchase the day before for whoever the Minister of Finance is. I have no idea where that tradition started, why it exists, but I enjoy it because it used to be that it'd be on the news the night before. Now, whoever it is just tweets it out. And Krista Freeland, she got shoes from a local shoe store in Toronto, and they wear the shoes. Like, it's such a strange tradition to me, but I love it so much.
Yeah, very, very strange, very strange. But I had a big day. I actually went in to the office today, so I did see those police cars patrolling the bridge there. A bustling day in Ottawa, despite what Doug Ford would tell you we're supposed to do. So there you go. But also a bustling day out in Calgary, Alberta, inside the curling bubble, the final of the Champions Cup, or finals, I should say, of the Champions Cup, the men's game this afternoon, women's game this evening, just wrapping up as we are recording. Scott, let's start right there on the women's side. Rachel Homan with a surprise appearance in the bubble, and then a surprise I'm going to play the first game, and then a surprise I'm going to play the rest of the games, and okay, I'm just going to win 3 weeks after having a baby while the baby is up with my mother sleeping and not really realizing what's going on because the baby's 3 weeks old. So of course the baby doesn't know what's going on. This is it's just insane. When we talked last week, Scott, it was all about Emma Miskey was looking forward to skipping, getting the experience of skipping. She was on the record as talking about how this is going to be a great experience in case, God forbid, Rachel ever has an injury or just has to miss an event for whatever reason. It's just great to have some skipping experience. Laura Walker was going to come in. Laura Walker was there. Did not see the ice this week. Yeah, Sean. When I saw that, it made me think, did Emma Miskey announce this on April 1st? Was this just a huge joke that they were playing on us?
It's crazy.
Yeah, so just crazy. What a rock star, right? I mean, I know Jonathan Braz was out there writing articles. Everybody's praising her on Twitter. We're maybe a little late to the party in that, but holy crap. What a show of athleticism and professionalism. Just like, I don't know. I can't say enough good things. Like, very, very impressive performance put on by Rachel Homan these last few days.
Yeah. And we talked before the Scotties final and wondered out loud on our broomstack that day that if Team Homan had won that, would Curling Canada have decided to send Carrie Anderson's team anyway, because we just assumed that Rachel would not be available for the women's worlds, which start in 2 weeks.
Right.
So, back then, 6 weeks ago, whenever that was, we figured, of course, the end of April into early May would not be a reasonable timeline for her to play. And here she is winning a Grand Slam 2 weeks in advance of what we thought would be possible. It's really just crazy. And I did see some quotes from Rachel earlier in this week saying that obviously this doesn't create any sort of benchmark for any other pregnant women or women who have just had children, because as she says, every woman is different. Every woman's going to respond differently to this. So, don't make this sort of the expectation for all other women to come after it. It's just a phenomenal story. Good for her. Cool to have her mother be able to be into the bubble with her so the baby can be there. Just an all around great story.
Yeah. Great story.
So,
and a team we like, right? I like Rachel Homan's team.
Yeah, I mean they're local-ish to us. It's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another banner for the Ottawa Curling Club. Although they put the Grand Slam ones inside the ice shed, which is where they typically put the ones they don't care as much about.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Or the giant ones. The CIS championship one is giant. It's the only place it'll fit.
Yeah, it's really big.
Yeah. So let's talk about this game, Scott. They beat Silvana Tirinzoni in the final. Good week for Tirinzoni and the Swiss squad as they gear up for the women's worlds. But in this game, it really did feel like Homan was just in charge the whole way. They got forced in the first end. They get the force right back. But it never felt as though Tirinzoni was in control of any of the ends. It's certainly my takeaway.
Yeah, and part of it was that the Swiss team just wasn't playing as well as Team Homan, right? It was a lot of half shots here or there. When they would get, like when they forced Rachel in the first, it was a very hard draw, but it was there and it just didn't curl enough. Like, okay, it wasn't like they forced her to an impossible angle run double or something, right? Like, so throughout the whole game, they just weren't putting the rocks in the right spot. And I think that was the reason that you thought Homan was in control the whole time, because they were the ones putting the rocks where they needed to, making the hits and rolls, making the draws to exactly the right spot. The guards, even where Team Tirinzoni seemed like they were chasing the whole game.
Yeah, and the numbers do back that up. Esther at 70%, whereas Sarah Wilkes was at 84%. And actually, Silvana Tirinzoni herself at 70%. Emma also finishes at 84%. So you see those 4 rocks in the middle for each team. Notable advantage over on Team Homan's side. And you saw it in the 8th end, I thought, Scott. Silvana Tirinzoni, this actually was kind of set up nicely for the Swiss. And Silvana Tirinzoni on her first, she has a chance at a double to sit 3 behind 3 Homan guards that are kind of Christmas treat and not particularly useful if you're Homan at that point. But Tirinzoni comes out a little wide. She might have set it back a bit too. Doesn't curl enough for her. She gets the stone too thin. Fortunately, I guess for her, it does catch her own in the back and she still has 2 in the house. But she never really has a legit chance at getting the shot stone at another point in that end. So if she makes that shot, she's sitting 3, 1's dead buried. The other 2 are kind of, sort of, maybe accessible, but they'd be tough shots for Rachel Homan. And that's really where the game, I think, was over at that point.
Well, I think that was a turning point in the sense that was like, oh, that was the opportunity. But even on the next rock, Rachel, or it was Emma, I guess, went deep with her draw. And well, Silvana was playing a draw. No, Emma hit, sorry. And then Silvana had a chance to play a draw around the guards that you'd mentioned. They were still there. And she had the chance to play the draw around. And the sweepers weren't sweeping it at all.
Yeah,
and it
crashed.
It not only crashed, it like nosed the guard. So
yeah,
She must have just got it going right away, and they were like, "Well, we're not going to save this. Why bother?" So I mean, there was still life in the game at that point, but then once that shot happened, it was kind of like, ooh,
Yeah,
pulling the plug on the support machine there.
Yeah, so a tough evening for Silvana Tirinzoni and company. So Rachel Homan gets her 11th Grand Slam victory. That puts her into first place of active women and maybe women all time would be my guess. So not just active. I can't think of anyone who would have more.
Maybe Jennifer Jones?
No, Jones was listed at 9 on what I saw.
Ah, okay.
And she is still active.
Oh, right.
That's a factor in that. So elsewhere across the women's draw, I kind of like the 16 playoff format. I don't think they'll stick with it, but I do like it. If we're looking at the semifinals, we had a great run for Tracy Fleury making her first appearance in the bubble. Of course, Chelsea Carey skipped the team back at the Scotties. Tracy Fleury was there, runs through undefeated the round robin ish part of the event, but falls to Tirinzoni 7-4 in the semi. She had a shot maybe on her last one in the semifinal, just couldn't quite get it where she needed to. It was a big hit, I believe a double that she couldn't quite get there. But a fun week for the team. They talked about how just great it was to be together in person again, and obviously played really well in the 4 games in the round robin. So nice to see them back together. Any takeaways from that squad, Scott?
Yeah, it was nice to see them back together, firing on all cylinders. They had a pretty good run at the beginning of the Scotties and sort of ran out of steam as it went on. But this team is really good, and they won. Didn't they win a Grand Slam last year?
Yes. Well,
Yes,
2019, the fall of 2019.
Yeah, the one in North Bay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can play with anybody in the world, and I think I'm sure having Tracy there was a bit of a boost to the whole squad. Now Tracy's going to leave the bubble, go back home, and they're going to bring Chelsea back in. So we'll see if they go 0-4 with Chelsea, and then we'll know the real secret sauce for the team. But I expect as long as Selena's playing well, that this team will win some games.
Yeah, that really is the key, is that Selena's on point, and you can forgive what happened at the Scotties, and they played well at the Scotties too, but just having never played together. So, but it is nice to see that they had a good week. In the other semifinal, Rachel Homan beat Carrie Anderson in a rematch of the Scotties final. Carrie Anderson didn't have a shot on her last one, I don't think, but threw it hard, because why not? But I don't think there was a shot there in that last one of the semifinal games. And you could see a lot of the other players. It was the last game on the ice. A lot of the other players were standing around looking and thinking. You could sort of see the looks on their face of like, maybe, how curlers do, is they like to stand around. But a good week for Carrie Anderson to get back into a semifinal. And interestingly enough, over on the women's side, where for the first time at a Grand Slam, we have these buys to the semifinals for the top 2 finishing team. Both of those teams lose actually in the semifinals. And we saw it at the Brier and the Scotties that coming through the semifinal into the final worked well. Similar thing happens here, where having that game earlier in the day proves beneficial as opposed to coming out cold in the night draw.
Get out, you get loosened up, you get a feel for the ice and everything. Yeah. Seems like it's been very advantageous this year.
Yeah. And so the other quarterfinalist, Elena Kovaleva, she fell to Tirinzoni in the quarter, and Satsuki Fujisawa in the other match against Rachel Homan. On the women's side, just in general, nothing too exciting, I think, from the teams that didn't make it. I don't think.
Anna Hasselborg lost every game.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to say about this. This is why I don't think it's exciting. Ready? I'm going to just call it. They're going to win the world championship. They're here for the world championship. These are warm-up games for them. I'm sure they would have rather won than lost. Sure. But I think if you're looking at what the point of this is for them, it ultimately is the world championship. So I'm not going to be too alarmed by that. Eve Muirhead goes 2-2. I'm not super alarmed by that either. If you just look in general, the teams that are going to be in the world championship on average did a little worse than those that aren't. I don't know if that necessarily means anything, but to me, it's a perhaps minor indicator as to what the purpose of these two events are for those teams compared to the other teams, particularly those who have already been in the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I know it doesn't matter, but
well, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't.
Yeah, right. Like 0-4. Oof. I mean, this team could come out and like not play well and win 3 games, right? Like they're that good.
They are. They're really good.
So that's like a little bit surprising to me. We'll see what happens next week, but
I'm not going to say I'm not surprised. I'm just saying that I don't think it's a predictor of what we should expect for them once we get to the Worlds. That's all.
Okay.
You don't seem convinced, Scott.
Well, I think it was the most surprising thing to me that came out of this week.
All right, and if you look at the scores, they did lose by 1 point to Eve Muirhead, 1 point to Minji Kim, lost by 3 to Fleury, and by 2 to Tiranzoni. They were run out of rocks in that game, I believe. So it's not like they were getting blown out of the arena.
No. But usually they're the ones doing the blowing out.
That is very, very true. The other team that is of note here, I guess, is Tabitha Peterson. They go 1-3 in their introduction to the bubble. They, of course, will be Team USA at the Women's Worlds.
Yes.
So it's an interesting team just in that, I mean, we've seen them before. They have Olympic experience, a really good team, but I don't know what the expectations are for them or what. I'm sure their internal expectations will be to make the playoffs, get that Olympic spot for the United States. But the external expectations, I'm not entirely sure what they are. I don't know what I would expect from them either. So it'd just be interesting to see as they move forth and now into the Players Championship, how they are progressing as we get to those Women's Worlds.
Yeah, if they can, get a couple more games under their belts then and go in feeling good, I think that would bode well. That would go a long way.
Yeah.
It's a new lineup too, so
yeah,
you got to get used to that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So overall, women's side, fun week. Good to have all these teams back. Enjoyed that, and just obviously Rachel Homan though is the story. Even if she lost that game, she might have been the story of the week. So an 11th Grand Slam for Rachel Homan. Over on the men's side, second Grand Slam victory for Bruce Mouat and his team out of Scotland. They beat Brendan Botcher in a rematch of the qualification game from the Men's World. Scott, in a sort of weird scheduling quirk, they play tomorrow afternoon in draw 2 of the Players' Championship. Kind of crazy that matchup is going to happen again. Obviously, there's no way to predict that. But second Grand Slam, as I said, for Bruce Mouat and the team. Scott, this game really turns in the fifth end. In the first half, Brendan Botcher was in control. Bruce Mouat and the team, they were chasing a lot in the first half of this game. And then they finally play a really good end, a great end, really, in the fifth end. And Brendan Botcher has an open draw facing 2. And the 2 rocks are behind the tee line, spread out, so there's no chance of a double for a blank or anything. But Brendan Botcher needs to touch the 4-foot to get a point. And I changed the channel because I was so certain. I was like, all right, fine, like wide open draw, touch the 4-foot, no problem. And then I turn it back 4 minutes later, and oh my God, they're down by 2. How did this happen? That's just something you don't expect to see at this level. And I was floored by that. But the game really turns at that point, and Mouat and the Scottish team really just take it home from there.
Yeah, I turned this game on in the 7th, and I thought Brendan had a shot. He had to play like a run back, a sort of double run back double. to get to, and it sounds harder than it was. I think he hit it almost too well, and just didn't spill it out quite far enough. I think the story of this game, Sean, if you look at the percentages of the back end, 66, 67 for Molding and Botcher, 81, 92 for Hardy and Mouat. And if you get outplayed like that, you're going to lose a lot of curling games.
Yeah. So that run double that you're talking about, Scott, that's in the seventh end. And this came up in the broadcast a little bit. And I was curious about this as well, because Brendan had not necessarily a simple shot, but a more makeable shot for one.
Like a draw, right?
Yeah. And he's down 2 at this point. So the question that they had on the broadcast was, obviously you want to score 2 if you can. The degree of difficulty on what he played was so high, though, that maybe you want to take the 1 because in this event you had the no tick zone. Mm-hmm. And the odds of stealing are higher when you can't tick a center guard off of that center line. So is this something that, do you think, given this rule, and they talked about it in the women's game as well, that perhaps it does create a more entertaining product? Do you think that should have come into that strategy decision to say, well, being down 1 in these rules is not like being down 1 normally?
I think that, yes, they should have taken that into account. Maybe they did, but if you're just sort of going on curling robot autopilot, like we can't be down 1. That's not acceptable. And maybe, you sort of forget that kind of thing coming into it. They did have 4 stolen ends in this event.
It's pretty
out
good.
Of 21 total ends played. That doesn't make sense. That's 21 total ends played without hammer.
Okay.
But yeah, like it didn't seem to me like stealing was up that much
right
this week.
And that certainly is going to be a testament to the shot making of these players, right? That it's really hard to steal. But it can lead to more exciting ends, more rocks in play early in the ends by getting rid of these tick shots. So it is something that we'll have to see how this progresses, and does the WCF look at this as something that they want to potentially implement? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I think it's still too early to tell. The sample size just isn't there yet.
Yeah. And no consensus for me yet either.
Overall, though, a great week for Brendan Botcher and his team. We talked, Scott, like what would they have left in the tank after being in the bubble for so long? Well, and I think I said that, well, they might have something ready for this event, and then the players, they'll just be ready to go. But Darren Moulding is going to stay in the bubble for the Women's Worlds and help out with the ice crew, apparently, because I guess he's just a glutton for punishment. Like, good on Darren Moulding. I know he's like an arena rat guy, and I mean that as a compliment, that he just loves being around the sport, being around the game. But man, oh man, like adding on another 11 days, good on him.
My gosh, I couldn't imagine, Sean.
Yeah,
I like traveling as much, maybe more than the next person, but after a certain amount of time, like, I gotta sleep in my own bed.
Yeah, I also noticed, I don't know if it was the lighting today, but it did seem like Brendan Botcher had been using his balcony out at the hotel.
Getting a little tan on.
It looked like he had I could see a bit of like sunglass lines. Where he might have been sitting outside for a while, because why not? You're stuck in that hotel room for
gotta get your base layers,
a couple months. Yeah. The other thing from that game, just talking about the seventh end, one of the things that really turned that end is Brad Thiessen missed a hit where he rolled out on his first, and that really turned the tide and let Bruce Mouat and the team control that end. And it leads me to a discussion that I wanted to have a little later, but it just reminded me of something when I was watching it. Scott, that is an important shot. That sets up the whole end. It is really early in the end, though, and Sportsnet on the quarterfinals and the semifinals does the around the rings coverage, where they'll hop from game to game and you see pretty much the last 4 rocks of each end for each game for the most part. Sometimes you don't, if it's wide open or whatever. And I was trying to think, do I like this? And there are pros and cons to it, obviously, that you get to see everybody, or at least all the skips over the course of the evening. And here's the comparison that I came up with, and I want to know what you think about this. The around the rings coverage is like going to a buffet instead of an a la carte restaurant. So at a buffet, you get to sample everything, right? You get a little bite, a little taste of everything. But you don't really get like the full meal experience, right? Whereas like an a la carte, you get the full meal, right? It's well-rounded. You get the whole thing. Yes, it's only one thing, but it's sort of the full entree as opposed to little pieces of everything.
It's like put together by the chef to tell a story on your palate.
Exactly.
Whereas the buffet, you're just eating crab legs and chocolate cake like an animal.
Right. You're going around. It's like, all right, so I'm going to have, all right, yeah, I'll have a crab leg here. Ooh, and then I'll have a piece of roast beef here. And then, over there, what's that? A chicken wing? Yeah, I'll have a couple of those. And then, some French fries. Great. And then, Brussels. Like there's no continuity necessarily to what you're eating. It's just, this seems interesting to me. And that's the difference, right? Like buffets can be fun at times. Like there's a place for the buffet. And an a la carte restaurant, sometimes the restaurant's going to be bad. And maybe you would want a little bit of everything. You'd be like, that was bad, but this one was good, which is what the buffet offers. But sometimes an a la carte restaurant, when you have that meal there, is just divine. And it's just magical the whole time through. And that's the difference to me, is that when you're focusing on one single game, the lows are going to be lower than the around the rings, but the high is going to be higher because you see the full story of the game. You see everybody, you see stuff like that Brad Thiessen shot in the 7th end. And that's the comparison that I came up with. What do you think?
Not bad. Not bad. I kind of like that idea. It's sort of like though when TSN would go to Kathy's update, she provides the context of, so-and-so hit and rolled out, and that's what set up this.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes that can be enough. If I care more about the game that's on TV, sure, that's enough. If I care more about the updated game, sure, I wish that there was more. And so to me, like having the around the sheets coverage is better than focusing on a game that I don't really care about.
Right.
So in that sense, what you're describing is right. Like sometimes what you get when you're told what to eat is bad and you want the variety, but sometimes it's really great. So I can dig your comparison there, your metaphor.
Thank you. I was very pleased when it came to my mind. And again, I think I prefer the full game experience myself because, again, you get to see those strategy decisions early on in the end. You get to see all the players. But I'm not going to say that the around the rings coverage doesn't have its place, because I definitely think it has its place. And I actually do think TSN should incorporate it for a couple draws at the Scotties and the Briar to account for everybody getting TV time. I would turn over 2 mornings to around the rings because Kathy's watching all the games anyway, so she can talk about them. And I might actually consider that to be a way to get everybody on TV for the Scotties and the Briar. But in general, I think I'm going to lean to the full game, but I'm happy to watch the around the rings as well. It's just like what you like and don't be a jerk about it. That's what I say.
Right. Yeah. Right. And Sean, like, me, I love NFL Red Zone.
Yeah.
And I find watching a single game like so annoyingly long
Right.
and so many ad breaks.
A lot of
Like
commercials.
uh, uh, curling is the kind of sport where we're not really suffering through, you know, a play and then a commercial and then a play and then a commercial. Like it's the flow is pretty good, and
Yeah.
so it's not benefiting from that kind of rapid action that something like NFL football is.
Yeah, I find sports where there's a natural break in the action, the commercials are less annoying. So
Yeah,
baseball falls into that to a certain
yeah,
degree. Sometimes football, when they have to change ends and stuff, it applies. Curling, certainly that applies. You got to get the rocks off of there and
yeah.
get set again. Whereas in hockey, when they just stop and flip that light on, you're like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no reason to have a break here. Same with basketball. Occasionally, where they just stop, where the coaches don't want a timeout, but there's a whistle, and now we got to go to commercial. So, yeah, curling
Yeah.
falls more into that baseball end of the spectrum. So, yeah, it was just something that I know there's been a lot of discussion of the Around the Rings coverage, and certainly we'll get a chance to see more of it this week as the next event comes up. Scott, was there anything else on the men's side of the event here that really stood out to you? We had a great week from Gushu. He doesn't lose until the semifinal game. We have Kui into the semifinal nip and tuck game against Brendan Botcher until the seventh end, where Brendan Botcher is able to blow it open. Just the Kui team couldn't quite get the rocks in the right spot in that end. We had John Morris moving to the third position in full for this event. He, of course, was in the house with Kevin at the Briar, but BJ was throwing third. They switched that up with John at the third position. An amazing quote from Jonathan Brazeau. He transcribed John Morris explaining why they made this decision. Go look at it because I won't do it justice. But it's just a stream of consciousness John Morris thing where if he was in front of you saying it, it wouldn't sound weird at all. But when you read it, it sounds it's bonkos to read it. Just total stream of consciousness.
Very good. And I think when that team was announced last year, my initial thought was that, oh, BJ's going to play second and John's going to play third. And I was like, oh, well, we'll see how long that lasts, the way they drew it up. So there you go.
It lasted one event.
Yep.
Yeah. And when I say bonkos too, I just want to clarify, like, it's because John Morris loves the sport so much that he just sort of runs on this stream. It's a great quote. I also note that in the semifinal game between Gushu and Bruce Mouat beat Gushu on a shot not dissimilar to the shot that Brendan Botcher beat Kui on in the semifinal of the Briar, an angle raise to win the game. So that is the key in the bubble, apparently, on the men's side. Win your semifinal with an angle raise, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and that was him beating Matt Dunstone, of course.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, in the semifinal because he beat Kui in the final. My apologies. Thank you, Scott, on that fact check. Elsewhere across the men's side, tough week for John Epping, going 1-3. Of course, Ryan Fry's not there, so really tough to integrate a new player in this setting with Colton Long. I was a little surprised, though, Scott, and I'm just curious as to what you thought about this, as to whether or not they should have, or maybe they did, consider changing up the lineup and having either Matt Cam or Brent Lang go play third, because Colton is a front end player, right? Great player at the front end and certainly in the mixed doubles. And I thought maybe you would consider moving Matt Cam back or Langer back.
Yeah, you could think of that, but maybe want to keep those guys in the roles that they're in now to keep working on it. Obviously, Matt Cam played third for John for many years.
Yep.
Well, a few years anyway, and is capable of doing it. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. No one knows.
I don't know anything more than
no
that.
One knows. Elsewhere, good week. Nicodine, he goes 3-1, loses to Bruce Mouat in the playoffs, and a few people be like, "Oh, it's a revenge game." I'm pretty sure Bruce Mouat would have rather have won the gold medal game,
probably
in the playoff game. But Elsewhere, yeah, tough week for Gunlickson. He goes 0 for in the bubble, as does Peter de Cruz. Perhaps a bit of a letdown after the World Championship for them. They are unable to get a win. The reconstituted Team McEwen goes 1-3. Certainly a challenge with only 3 guys out there and trying to integrate a new player at the same time. But they're full fare for that. Like, great effort, good for them for going in there, and certainly a tough field.
Absolutely. Not easy to do at any level, and let alone at this high level event.
Yeah. So one other thing that I wanted to mention here, Scott, the tagline for the Champions Cup. Are you aware of what it is?
The tagline for the Champions Cup?
Or the slogan, or it's on the logo. Can you think of it off the top of your head?
I cannot.
All right. So it's the Champions Cup, the world's best battle. Now, I have questions because
Okay.
I want to know now, because there's no hyphen between worlds and best. Okay.
Okay.
So is it the world's best battle? So world's best is an adjective describing battle? Or is it the world's best? So the noun of bests, like describing the teams and that they're battling.
Either way.
No, this actually matters, because if it's the latter, or sorry, if it's the former, and this is the best battle of the world,
yeah,
then what the hell am I supposed to watch? Why am I watching tomorrow? Like, if this is the best that we just had, then what's the point of tomorrow? It's it's a tagline that almost defeats the purpose of all the other events they have. I was just confused by it.
Well, don't they usually have that one last?
Yeah, and you have the World Junior Champions there. The Euro champion is automatically in, the PAC champion is automatically in. Yeah, that is the point of it, is that you have to win something to get there.
So who knows why the hell they switch it up? Like, this is just some, I don't know, Crazy Rogers stuff. Did they let Jungle Jim in to create the schedule or whatever? Like, who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah. So I was just confused by that. By that, but it does set up the Players Championship, which starts tomorrow. And I did notice that the Princess Auto on the button. So I guess Princess Auto gave more money.
It is the Princess Auto Players Championship, but I don't think they're changing the ice at all, right?
No, there's no time to do that. So yeah, but Princess Auto beat Humpty's to get the button.
Well, Humpty's got like probably something on the rest of the ice.
Yeah, there were a lot of logos. I did notice that. I also noticed, Scott, the 12-foot during this event. Did you notice the 12-foot at all?
I noticed that it was blue and it had some kind of design in it.
Yes, it had the Sportsnet logo, very faintly, almost like a shadow of sorts, in the 12-foot. I found it. I shouldn't have, because it's a silly thing. I found it so annoying. Like, it was distracting almost.
They usually have some weird design around the 12-foot, right? In this event, like it's a color and it's like some triangles or whatever.
Yeah, I would have liked it to be more obnoxious, because when they're trying to hide it like that, I found it very distracting. I didn't care for it. But it's there for another week.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So
get used to it.
Yeah, I'll have to. So let's look ahead, Scott, to the Players Championship. Is there anything from this week that you think we should look for now into the Players Championship as we move ahead? The one thing that we kind of complained about last week, or wondered about at least, was why are they only playing 4 games when pools of 6? That has been rectified for the Players Championship. We are getting a full round robin, 2 pools of 6. The same playoff structure will apply, where the top 2 finishers will go straight to the semifinals, and the other 4 playoff teams will play off in the quarters. Again, I like that. It gives a little bit more of a reward to the top 2 teams. The pools seem pretty well balanced to me, sort of when I look through them. Again, just a strange scheduling quirk to have Mouat against Botcher in the first day in their first game in the Players. But what are your expectations now that we've seen the first Grand Slam and everyone's had a chance to be on the ice and get a feel for the bubble?
I'd expect everybody to be on more even footing, with a week under their belts. I do think the Canadian teams maybe had an advantage. Kevin Martin tonight during the game said they were playing with the Curling Canada stones that had been used for the Brier and the Scotties. But with one event under everyone's belt, okay, we've all gotten a feel for the ice, a feel for the stones. Now we're ready to go. I would expect it to be like a little bit more evenly matched.
Mm-hmm.
I think Anna Hasselborg will watch to see. I can't see her going over again.
No.
We'll see how much gas Rachel Homan has left in the tank, if she's even going to play.
Yeah.
Because we just won an event. Like,
drop the mic and go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Boom. I'm better than you guys 3 weeks after giving birth. So no need to prove anything else. So I'll look for that story, and just to see the teams that are going to the women's worlds. I want to see how they sort of put together this week, if they go into that event on a high or on a low.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So there's 6 teams that are going to be in the women's worlds out of the 15 that are there, and they're split evenly, 3 in one pool, 3 in the other pool.
I'm on the Grand Slam website right now.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I have no way. I can't find how, like, what pools these teams are in.
It is hard to find. You have to click on Humpty's Champion Cup live scoring. And then
the Champions Cup part, yes, I could find. I can't find it for the upcoming players.
Oh, it'll take you to at the top of that. There's a little tab where you can find the players. So I'll run through the pools real quick.
I did click on that, and it took me to the main page for the Players Championships.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I was able to find it. I agree that I don't think their website is particularly great for navigation. But on the women's side, it's Anderson, Fleury, Tiranzoni, Kim, Stern, and Peterson in a pool. And the other pool is Hasselborg, Jones, Muirhead, Kovaleva, Fujisawa, and Homan. And then on the men's side, we got Mouat, DeCruz, Jacobs, Botcher, Eden, and Gunlickson. And then Schwaller, Dunstone, Epping, McEwen, Gushu, and Cooey to round it out.
All right. Are we picking now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. So let's make our picks on the Champions Cup. We don't really need to talk about them. Neither of our picks made the final, so that's okay. Happens. But who you got?
I got to take Team Cooey.
Yeah.
For the men's side. And that pool B for the women is really stacked. So I think I'm going to take Anderson coming out of the other side.
Okay. First event that Carrie Anderson did not win in the bubble.
And I think I picked her for the last one too.
Indeed you did, along with Gushu.
So let's just keep rolling.
Okay. And for me, I think on the men's side, let's go a little slightly kind of sort of off the board, but not really off the board, and go with Jacobs. I picked him last time. So why not? And then on the women's side, I don't know, someone who is going to the World Championship. Are they going to come through, get that momentum moving forward? Maybe, probably, but I'm going to pick Jennifer Jones.
Hey.
So why not? That's same two I picked last time. Sticking with them. No fair weather fans here.
It's like the lottery. You play the lottery with the same numbers,
every time. One thing you mentioned there, Scott, they are using the Curling Canada stones for this event. And of course, this does give an advantage to the Canadian teams because they have rock books on all these stones. But it did lead me to wonder, and this is something I think we should talk about at some point. When events use the same stones over and over and over again, I think it would be interesting to change the handles out on all of them and just randomly put the handles in stones so that each event you have to rematch rocks, and we can truly find out who is the best at in the event tracking rocks as opposed to who has the best book.
Yeah. Or that way it would be like just change them in between every game. Nobody knows what the hell they're throwing.
You could do that too. But
then it'll come down to who's the best player. Hey.
Yeah. But it does strike me that these rock books, and you saw it during the men's worlds, is I believe it was Colton Flash gave Brendan Botcher the rock book on the WCF rocks that he had. Like, I don't know. At some point, I'm curious to know if guys can really pick up on the intricacies of the stones as we go through an event. And I wonder if it would actually affect shooting percentages too. If having to learn the stones as you go through, if that would make a difference. Something I've wondered about today.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to do that, maybe then don't touch them either during the event, right?
Yeah.
But when you do that, you do kind of have to learn the rocks a bit again as you go. I mean, more of a minor change, but it could be interesting.
Yeah, just something I thought of during the evening game and something to think about, and maybe something. We have a rock episode idea in the summer book, so I'm going to add that to that discussion. So
hey Sean, before I let you off the hook here, Wikipedia has Jennifer Jones winning 15 total Grand Slams.
Okay, there you go.
But these include Autumn Gold, Curling
those
Classic,
don't count. No, those don't count.
Canadians.
No.
Well, they used to count as Grand Slams. So
yes, they used to count when the Grand Slams, the branded Grand Slams, didn't let women play in all the events.
That is true.
Back in the dark ages of 2014.
Terrible times.
Yeah. And I think even after Sportsnet Bottom, it was a few years, right? Sportsnet Bottom went 2009, 2010.
Yeah, I think it was. They didn't come all like to do all of them until 16.
Yeah, around then.
Yeah.
So yes, those other events did count, but on that graphic that they showed at the end, clearly they didn't include any of those events in the total.
Very good.
So, but yeah, let's give Jennifer Jones 15. Why not?
Yeah, what the hell?
Hey, if it was considered a Grand Slam at the time, it counts.
So great.
Yeah. That's why she's the best. That's why she was number one in the poll last year.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So that will do it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the curling. Something a little different from what we've had over the past little bit. And as we mentioned, Players Championship starts tomorrow. We're about 15 hours away as we record this from the start of the Players Championship. No TV coverage until Wednesday, and no morning draws as we go through the week. Tiebreakers will be at noon Eastern time on Saturday if necessary. They are going deep prime time on the semifinal again, so it'll be a 10 o'clock tip
10
Eastern
o'clock.
time on Saturday night for the semifinals. I'm assuming that is to not run into pucks, but I don't know.
Well, the semifinals were 10 o'clock last night, right?
Yes, they were.
So,
but originally scheduled to be Saturday night.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But hey,
Sean, spoiler alert, I didn't stay up.
They rebroadcast it this morning.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, it was great. So there you have it. Enjoy the Players Championship, everybody. We'll be back with you after the Players Championship to talk about all the goings on from Calgary as the final Grand Slam of the season wraps up, and then we will turn our attention to the 2021 Women's World Championship, which will kick off 4 days later. Scott, we had no curling for a year, and now it's just event after event after event. Go. And we're just watching. Yeah. I don't know how the players feel.
Yeah, right? Like it's a little numbing.
Yeah.
To be honest. But I'm really looking forward to the Women's Worlds. Looking forward to coming back and talking to you about that. So we'll end it on a high note.
Which is what?
Well, like a great showcase of women's curling for the rest of the world to see.
All right, there you have it. So thanks everybody for listening. If you have not yet, please do subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Do the likes, ratings, comments, all that good stuff. Helps other people find the show, keeps us growing. And do head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All the past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. I've been wearing my Game of Stones hoodie a lot. It's great hoodie season here. At night, I open the windows. It's delightful. Yeah. It's a super comfortable hoodie. So do head on over. We are matching the purchases with all the proceeds going to the Sandra Schmirler Foundation and Food Banks Canada. Do also follow along with everything going on social media. We are at Game of Stones Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Scott is at Scott Lakes TV, and I am at the Sean Graham. And let us know what you want to hear on the show. Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. So that will do it for us tonight. We'll be back with you on Sunday, but until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.